December 26, 1900, a remote island, off the coast of Scotland, a relief keeper named Joseph Moore climbs 160 steep stone steps, cut into the side of a cliff. He is alone, the wind is howling. The sea below him is violent and gray. He is here to swap out the 3 men who have been manning the lighthouse. It is a routine visit. He has done this before. There is nothing unusual about today, except when the ship approached the island, nobody came down to meet them. That never happens. Lighthouse keepers are trained to respond to visiting vessels. They watch for the ship, they come down, they help unload supplies. Nobody came. Moore reaches the top of the steps, the entrance gate is closed, the main door is closed, he opens it and goes inside. The clock on the kitchen wall has stopped. The beds are unmade. The table is set for a meal that was never eaten. Food sitting there, cold, untouched. As if 3 men simply stood up in the middle of dinner and walked out. One set of oilskins is still hanging in the hallway. The oilskins are what lighthouse keepers wear when they go outside in bad weather. Someone had left the island without theirs. In December, on a remote Scottish island, in the middle of a storm, Moore goes back outside and searches the entire island. No sign of James Ducat, no sign of Thomas Marshall, no sign of Donald McArthur. 3 experienced lighthouse keepers, gone, without a word, without a trace. The lighthouse still in order, the lamp cleaned and ready, their belongings untouched. They were simply not there anymore. And over 120 years later, nobody has ever been able to fully explain where they went. To understand why this case has fascinated people for over a century, you first need to understand where it happened and who these men were. The Flannan Isles are a small group of remote islands, about 20 miles off the west coast of Scotland, out in the North Atlantic. Untouched Moore is the largest of them. And even saying largest is generous. It is a small, windswept rock, sticking up out of one of the most violent stretches of ocean in the world. The cliffs drop straight down into the sea. In bad weather, the waves hitting those cliffs send spray 100 feet into the air. The lighthouse had only been opened for 1 year when the disappearance happened. The 3 men assigned there in December 1900 were James Ducat, Thomas Marshall, and Donald McArthur. James Ducat was 43 years old. He was the principal keeper, the most senior man on the island. He had been a lighthouse keeper for over 20 years, calm, steady, reliable. A family man with a wife and 4 children waiting for him on the mainland. Thomas Marshall was 28, the assistant keeper, younger, less experienced, but competent and hard-working. Clean record. Donald McArthur was 40, a stand-in keeper filling in for a colleague on sick leave. Strong, sometimes quick-tempered, but reliable. A family man too. These were not careless men, they were not inexperienced. They knew this island, they knew this lighthouse, they knew the sea. All 3 of them vanished on the afternoon of December 15, 1900. And nobody found out for 11 days. Here is one of the stranger parts of this story. The disappearance was not discovered immediately. It could not be because of where the island was. On the night of December 15th, a steamship called the Archtor was passing the Flannan Isles. The captain looked toward the lighthouse and noticed something wrong. The light was off. A lighthouse that was supposed to be guiding ships through dangerous waters in the dark was completely dark. He made a note in the log. He intended to report it when he reached port. But then the ship ran aground in the Firth of Forth. The captain had other problems. The report did not get through. Meanwhile, on the Isle of Lewis 16 miles away, a gamekeeper named Roderick Mackenzie had been hired specifically to watch for signals from Untouched Moore every night. For 8 nights, he saw nothing. For the first 7, he told himself the bad weather was blocking the light. On the 8th night, as the weather started to clear, and there was still no light, he filled with dread. There is no record of him officially reporting it even then. The relief ship Hesperus tried to reach the island on December 20th. The weather was too bad. It could not get close. It finally reached Untouched Moore on December 26th, 11 days after the men vanished. When Moore came back down from the lighthouse and told the captain what he had found, empty rooms, stopped clock, uneaten food, no men, the captain sent a telegram to the mainland. It said simply, "A dreadful accident has happened at the Flannans. The 3 keepers, Ducat, Marshall, and the occasional have disappeared from the island." A proper investigation was launched. The superintendent of the Northern Lighthouse Board, Robert Muirhead, arrived to look into what had happened. What he found at the western landing of the island gave the most likely clue. There was clear evidence of storm damage at the west landing. Ropes tangled and displaced, an iron railing bent. Significant amounts of turf and rock from the cliff top moved. Whatever had hit that part of the island had been extremely powerful. Now here is where the story gets specific. Thomas Marshall had previously been fined 5 shillings by the Lighthouse Board for losing equipment in a storm. 5 shillings in 1900 was not nothing. For a working man with a family, it was a real amount of money. The theory that emerged was this. When a violent storm came in on December 15th, Marshall and Ducat went down to the West Landing to secure the equipment before it was lost to the sea. Marshall especially had reason to be worried. While they were down there, a large wave hit the West Landing. Both men were swept into the sea. McArthur, who may have been inside the lighthouse at the time, either saw what happened or heard it. He grabbed what he could, but not his oilskins. Not in the rush. He ran down to help. He too was swept away, all 3 of them gone, in a matter of minutes. The lighthouse running normally above them, the meals sitting on the table, the clock ticking down until it ran out and stopped. If that was the whole story, 3 men swept off a cliff by a wave in bad weather, this would be a tragedy, not a mystery. But a few details made the story stick. The first was the oilskins. One set still hanging in the hallway. A lighthouse keeper leaving the building without his oilskins during a winter storm on a remote Scottish island in December is like a firefighter running into a burning building without any equipment. It does not make sense, unless he was moving so fast, reacting to something he heard or saw, that he did not stop to grab them. The second detail was the meal. Table set for dinner, food sitting there, chair pushed back as if someone had stood up suddenly and left. The third detail is the one that took on a life of its own. For years after the event, stories circulated that the lighthouse logbook contained haunting final entries. That one of the men had been crying. That all 3 had been praying. That the final entry said, "Storm ended, sea calm, God is over all." These entries were reproduced in newspaper articles, in books, for decades. They made the story feel even more eerie, even more inexplicable. Here is the problem. They were not real. Historians who examined the original records found no such entries. The actual logbook was completely routine up to December 13th. The dramatic final entries, the crying, the praying, the God is over all, they came from a poem written about the case in 1912 by a writer named Wilfrid Wilson Gibson. He invented them for literary effect, and then they got repeated so often that people assumed they were real. This is how a mystery grows in the telling. The real events were already strange enough, and still, people felt the need to add more. I want to be honest with you about where the evidence points, because I think you deserve that, even when the honest answer is less exciting than the mystery. The rogue wave theory is the most credible explanation. Modern science has confirmed that rogue waves are real, unusually large waves that appear suddenly and without warning. They can strike coastlines with extraordinary force and then recede before anyone nearby has time to react. The physical damage found at the West Landing is consistent with a powerful wave event. The behavior of the men going to the West Landing in bad weather to secure equipment is consistent with what we know about their characters. Marshall had been fined for losing equipment before. That is a real, documented fact. And 3 experienced men making a bad call together in an emergency is not hard to imagine. One goes out, something happens, the second follows to help, the third follows the second. Within minutes, all 3 are in the water, and the North Atlantic in December does not give second chances. What I am confident about is this. These were not careless men. Whatever happened to them, it happened fast. And whatever it was, it came from the sea. 3 lighthouse keepers disappeared from a remote Scottish island on the afternoon of December 15, 1900. James Ducat left behind a wife and 4 children. His youngest was 6 years old. Thomas Marshall was 28 years old, unmarried. Donald McArthur left behind a wife and children. Their bodies were never found. The official cause of death, recorded in the register, was listed as probably drowning. Probably. Even in the official record, there is uncertainty. The lighthouse on Alien Moor is still there. It was automated in 1971. No more lighthouse keepers, no more men living on that island, no more rotating shifts on that windswept rock. The island is empty now. The cliffs are the same. The sea is the same. Sailors passing by still look toward the lighthouse in wonder, the same way they have been wondering for 120 years. James, Donald. This was their story. Thank you for watching. The Flannan Isles case is one of those mysteries where the most likely explanation is probably right, yet something about it refuses to fully settle. An empty lighthouse, an uneaten meal, a set of oilskins still hanging on a hook. Some images just stay with you. See you in the next one.